Welcome to another video tutorial for learning music theory with Logic, Max, and Finale, published by Routledge and written by Jeffrey Kidda. In this video tutorial, we'll discuss chromatic harmony. The first type of chromatic harmony that we'll look at is the so-called applied dominant chord. An applied dominant is a chord which resolves as in the dominant function to a chord other than the tonic. And the most common example is the 5 of 5, which is to say a dominant which resolves to the dominant chord. We can create applied dominants that resolve to the supertonic, median, subdominant, dominant, or submedian chords. We can create applied dominant chords using Logic's chord trigger tool. We'll show an example of using Logic's chord trigger tool to create applied dominants in the traditional song Amazing Grace. We can also create applied dominants using Finale's chord tool. We can use the copy, paste, and transpose functions in Finale to create applied dominant chords. Another kind of chromatic harmony is the applied leading tone chord. That is to say, a leading tone chord which resolves to a chord other than the tonic. And once again, the most common example would be the leading tone chord which resolves to the dominant chord, or an applied leading tone chord resolving to the dominant. We'll see how we can use the copy, paste, and transpose functions in Finale to create applied leading tone chords. And we'll have an example of an applied leading tone chord created with the chord trigger in the song Have You Met Miss Jones? Finally, we'll get an introduction to the chromatic progression generator, an app created in Max, which will allow us to explore other aspects of chromatic harmony. In the first measure, we have the supertonic chord followed by the dominant chord in C major. If we raise the third of the supertonic chord, it becomes a major triad, and this can function as the applied dominant leading to the dominant chord, the 5 of 5 leading to 5. In the last measure, we have a progression starting on the tonic, then the applied dominant of the dominant chord, then the dominant chord, and then finally back to the tonic chord. To create applied dominants, we're simply going to take that target chord and take the fifth of that chord and create a major triad or a dominant seventh chord on the fifth. And we can create these applied dominant chords, as we can see here, on the supertonic, median, subdominant, dominant, or submedian chords. We'll notice that in the case of an applied dominant leading to the subdominant chord, the triad is exactly the same as the tonic chord, so it's not going to have that sound of a dominant function. But if we make it into a dominant seventh chord, it will certainly have the sound of resolving to the 4 chord. We can create applied dominant chords using Logic's chord trigger in the pop left hand setting. we can hear applied dominance for the 2, 3, 5, and 6 chords. Here's an example of the traditional song Amazing Grace. We can hear applied dominance in measure 6, which is the 5-6 of 6 chord, a D major chord which resolves to the 5 chord in measure 7, and we can hear an applied dominant in measure 13, the 5-6 of 6 chord, a dominant sounding chord which resolves to the sub-median chord in measure 14. We can create applied dominance using Finale's chord tool and in the chord definition window. First, we click on the chord tool, then we click on a measure. In the chord definition window, we're going to type in that we want an A major chord with a C in the bass, and to create a first inversion chord, we will need a C sharp in the bass. So we're going to have an alternate bass, both played and written, and we're going to have the root of the chord be 6, as in the 6th scale degree in C major, and we'll have the bass note be 1, as in a C, but it will be altered by 1 semitone. Then we have the applied dominance for other chords in the sequence, and ending up on the submedian chord. We can create applied dominance using the basic copy and paste functions in Finale and also the transposition function in Finale. The transposition function here we'll use in the chromatic setting. We'll start with a 5-6-5 of 1 in C major, and we'll copy that into the third measure where it precedes a supertonic chord, and we'll use the transpose function to transpose it up chromatically a major second, and we'll continue that process for the subsequent chords until we have created applied dominance for all of the chords that can receive or can have applied dominance, until we come to the end where we have an applied dominant for the submedian chord, always just using the copy and paste function and transposition tool. Another kind of chromatic harmony is the applied leading tone chord. To create an applied leading tone chord, we'll take our target chord, which in this case is the dominant chord, and we'll think about what is the leading tone which resolves to that chord. The leading tone in this case would be F sharp. If we build a diminished triad or diminished 7th chord or half diminished 7th chord on that tone, which is a semitone below the root of our target chord, will create an applied leading tone chord which can resolve. In this case, we have the applied leading tone chord resolving to the dominant chord in C major. We're using copy and paste and transposition to create all the applied leading tone chords, and the result is as an example of how we could use this in a musical piece. The Rodgers and Hart song, Have You Met Miss Jones? The second measure has an applied leading tone chord, which resolves to the supertonic chord. In this case, in C major, we're starting in C major, then we have a C sharp diminished chord, and then a D minor chord, in this case, a D minor ninth chord. We'll use the chord trigger jazz ballad right hand. Finally, we can learn about chromatic harmony with the chromatic progression generator. In the next video tutorial, we'll see other examples of chromatic harmony using the chromatic progression generator. In this first view of the chromatic progression generator, we see the applied dominant chords leading to the supertonic. That's to say the second chord leading to the third chord. That's a 5-6-5 of 2. The fourth chord leading to the fifth chord, that's a 5-6-5 of 3, resolving to the 3. And then in chords 6 and 7, a 5-6-5 of 5, resolving to the dominant 7th chord in the key in the 7th chord position. Thanks for watching.